Okay, so today I'm going to trim some plates. This is the red earthenware that I use. It's quite a nice color. So there's a few things I have to do first. I have to trim the edge here because I made it, the rim was too big. I wanted it a certain size and it came out bigger, and I want them to more or less match other ones. So I have to first of all trim that and get this right side up on the wheel head, and I use pins on my wheel head. So these are the holes on my bats. There's one here and there's one here, and pins are here, and I always put a little piece of clay on the edges here, 90 degrees away from a pin, just a little bit, a little less than 1/8 of an inch, and that will help prevent the bat from going like that. So we find the holes, and then we push down on those sides to try and make sure it doesn't wobble, which it's not doing, so that's good. And don't need to wet that. If I was throwing, I would wet that, but I don't need to do that. So I'm going to put this on here. Try to center it as well as I can. My wheel is a bit noisy, but I'll live with that. Off center a little bit. Okay, so we do need to wet the base a little bit, keep it from sliding around. And we'll try this again. As you can see, I'm just using my finger at the side to get an idea of how well centered it is. I also used a pencil mark, but it's a little tricky centering this compared when it's plate is right side up. It's easier when it's on its rim. Another way to do this, which I'm now going to do, is to use my trimming tool. Sometimes it's easier if the piece is moving around too much. Pretty nice. I like it as rounded as possible. Sometimes my glaze, if it detects or it comes, if the edge is got a little sharp point on it, it'll bleed through the glaze, make the piece sharp even when it's finished. like sanding pieces at the end. You could sand it when it's dry to get rid of any sharp pieces, but I don't like sanding. It's just too hard on the chest. Now we're going to tidy up any little bits we can now that the plate is in this position. Okay, because it's right side up now. It's going to be flipped in a moment, and then I may not have access to this area for a little while. So I want it smooth here. I don't like that sharp bit. I try to get a gradual rise, not an abrupt change of direction in this corner in here when I'm throwing, and I try to adjust it now to make it further, maybe just a little bit more gradual. If it's too abrupt, too much of a right angle in here, when you pour the slip on, it will gather in that corner. And that extra slip has more water in it, and it will cause cracking, and you'll get a crack right along there, right between the flat part and the rim. So we want a gradual rise there. So this all looks good. There's a little groove in here which I could tidy up or I could leave. I think I'm going to leave it. Sometimes these things are just nice little variations in the piece rather than being a real problem, and that's what I think that is. And okay, now, so here's our piece. Now there's a couple of things. I have to check the distance from this point here, sort of the corner, as the flat part comes along, we have a gradual rise, and then it flips over to the rim. Right on that corner there, all the way over to this corner here, I want to measure it. And it measures about 6 1/8 inches. So I'm going to remember that. And then when I make my foot ring, I'll remember that the outside diameter should be 6 1/8 inches. The reason for that is that you want the rim to be properly supported by the foot underneath. And if this were transparent and you could see all the way through, you would see that you want the foot to be around there on the outside. If it's in here, if it's in on the flat bit, you're going to have terrible structural problems. And if it's way out here, again, it just isn't going to work. It's going to be very heavy and you can't put your rim out there. So you want your rim in around here, and that seems to be a really good place to put it. It's strong for stacking in the kiln. The rim will sit on a place around here, not right up on the rim, but down a little bit, which is a nice strong place for a stack to be supported. I don't actually stack my plates because I've found even with this support, the heat problems of the heat penetrating the inner plates is such a problem that you get cracking there as well. I usually just do them 2 at a time, and 2 at a time, then put another shelf on, and 2 at a time, 2 at a time. So 6 1/8, I had to remember that. We're going to flip this. Oh, and we're going to do one more thing before we flip it. We're going to feel the thickness here. Every plate's a little different. And this one, fairly thick. I can feel it in there. It's probably about just over 3/8 of an inch. So 7/16 or so. Or yeah, 7/16. So that gives me an idea of how much I'm going to take off. This one's a little thick. I'm going to take off a little more than I usually do. And I'm also going to feel the space between the this inner spot here and this outer spot here, just to feel how much I have to trim in here, in this way. How far, not the foot. The foot's going to be to 6 1/8, but this area here, I'm going to push that in. I'm going to trim that in as well. And it again feels fairly thick, probably about 3/8 of an inch, and I can go in a little bit there. So we put that down as well as we can. We use a pencil to draw a little circle, which then really helps a lot to center the rest of it. Now there is a little wobble to my back. You can see that it hits there like that. That's only a tiny little bit, like a 1/16 of an inch, and I wouldn't worry about it. You don't need quite as much perfection as you think. I'll just get in some more clay to put around the outside. So we're just going to take this and put it in here. 3 little places, spots, 12 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and 8 o'clock, I guess. Okay, there we go. And now we can start trimming it. So I've just turned the camera around so you can see my tool more easily. And we're trying to get this down to 6 1/8. It's 6 1/2. Still have a ways to go. Okay, that's fine. And then we're just going to pull this clay off of here so it's not too thick. This is the area where it's curving up from the flat part. And I just want to take some of that. I'm following the line of the rim so that it's nice and continuous. And then you're just going to curve this right. Okay, that's pretty good. I want a fairly distinct edge here because when I'm applying the slip, that's what's going to be holding the piece from slipping off my hand. That looks pretty good. Now we're going to do the inside. First I want to define my rim itself. My foot, I mean. Define the foot, and I know from experience how far down to go. And we're going to start here, because if we start here, you're having to press hard here, but it's thin around the edge and the whole piece will collapse. But if you start here, this part, the thicker part here, will support this part here while you're putting pressure on it. The reason for doing this in concentric rings like that is because it's easier to see how far down you've gone than if you just start in the middle, gouge it out, and come all the way gradually out. You won't be able to tell the depth as clearly. And be very careful not to take too much from here. You can always leave a little thickness in here. I will be trimming this out, but I will probably leave it a little thicker there because that is a vulnerable area for cracking. And some of the earthenware pots, some of the clays experience quite a bit of stress in cooling in terms of quartz inversions and other such things, and they can cause cracking. So a little thickness doesn't hurt. Tap it to get a feeling for how far you've gone down. It's both, you'll feel a little give sometimes, and you'll hear the sound. And again, it's largely instinct, and it feels like I've got quite a bit of room there to go, so I'm going to trim some more off. Definitely getting there now. Mostly now I'm just going to even out the ridges. That looks pretty good. And sometimes I use this tool. Don't really need it today. It's better when the clay is a bit dry, a little harder. But I'll just show it to you. It's a nice tool to have. Sometimes it really helps. And that's basically that. I think I will take my aluminum rib and just smooth it out a little more. Pretty good. Now we just have to work on the rib, on the foot a little bit. I'm just going to tidy up the squareness of it, maybe the thickness a little bit, and smooth it out. That's basically it. And I'll just take these off and make sure I've got all the little bits of clay, all the little bits that went flying, try to get them off and smoothed over. And I could take this tool to this area here. Just to smooth that out a little bit. Don't want to get too carried away with this. it. And now there'll be one last check to make sure that I've got the thickness the way I want it. It feels pretty good. I'm just feeling it through there, feeling it through there, and it feels just fine. It feels nice and light. And that's it. Looks like a plate.